it's Joelle at Brooklyn Book Doctor. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be talking about a few common questions that I always get about publishing, some just general confusion about what's out there. Happens for everybody, including clients who work with me. At some point in the process, we go back and review these again. So I'm really glad you could join me today for this live. I'm going to go over a few things. I'm going to go over three things specifically. Hey, Catherine. The differences between the three typical publishing paths that you can go down that are your options right now as a nonfiction author, what it takes to get an agent, and also some surprising benefits of becoming an author that you might not be top of mind for you right now. But before I dive into this, I want to just tell you that applications are open now to, hey, Kelly, applications are open to Book Proposal Academy VIP, which is starting in January. If you go to my bio, the first link there, you can apply. It's totally free to apply. And everyone who applies, I'm doing a free private training next week. So if you're interested in writing a nonfiction book, including memoir, in the coming year, apply. Definitely get in there. We'll do a live training next week, and I would love to have you and see if we're a good fit. But at the moment, let's get back to talking about some common questions about publishing a nonfiction book. These are the basics, and they're not intuitive. It's not just out there. Excited for VIP, says Catherine. Thank you. Yes, me too, actually. Really excited for it. All right, so generally, as a nonfiction author, we think about, right now, traditional publishing, like getting a book deal, getting in advance, that kind of thing, or self-publishing. And those are definitely two real options. And there's also something called hybrid publishing. So I'm going to lead you through the pros and cons of these, excuse me. I have some notes in front of me, so if my eyes wander, I'm just looking at my notes because sometimes I forget what I want to say, even though I know this stuff. All right, so let's talk about the three main options that are open to you as a nonfiction book writer for publishing. So first and foremost, probably you're thinking about traditional publishing. So that means getting a book deal, getting in advance. Hey, Reem, nice to see you. Getting on the bestseller list, that kind of thing. And within traditional publishing, it might just seem like the only option is bestseller list, and that's it. But actually, there's a really wide range of options for you as an author. So you might have heard about the big five publishers. Those are the New York-based publishers, typically Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, which is the biggest, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Hachette, and all of their various imprints. And then there's sort of the mid-tier after that, which are people like Sounds True and Shambhala. They often have distribution deals with the big five. But they themselves are a kind of a mid-size or a smaller house. And then there are the really small or niche publishers like Catapult, or Europa Editions. There are many of these, Coffee House Press, that kind of thing. And they're going to be more literary publishers for people who are writing very literary or sometimes experimental work, essays, and they do a lot of essays, memoir, hybrid things that maybe combine a couple of genres, fiction. They are able to take more risks because they are smaller, and they also have smaller advances because they're smaller. So generally the larger advances, but not always, the larger advances come from the big five, sometimes also the mid-tier traditional publishers. And then of course there are nonprofit publishing houses that specialize, like maybe they're an academic press, or maybe they're affiliated with a religious institution or some other kinds of institution. Like I think the Seafarers Institution has a publishing arm, something very specific and very niche. Those kind of publishers exist also. So generally, these are the kinds of traditional publishers that exist out there. So what's the pro of going with a traditional publisher? Well, one thing you're probably thinking is, you get a book deal, and you do. You get an advance, you get the imprint of that publisher on your book spine, you get to be among the family of books that they are publishing, which maybe you have some hero authors that are there with them, and you want to be among them. You also get access to their distribution channels, which is one of the biggest benefits of going with a traditional publisher. They have connections in places, their salespeople have connections in places like big box stores, airport bookstores, all the places that take years to cultivate relationships that as an individual we do not have access to. They have those relationships. They have whole teams of people who have those relationships. So their distribution is much wider, and those systems are much more in place than we as individuals tend to have. That's a generalization, but tend to have. The cons of a traditional publishing deal is that your advance may not match your expectations. So often we think about publishing a book, we think bestseller. And honestly, there is such a fine-tuned number of things that have to go right for you to have a bestseller that most people, if they get a publishing deal, do not have a bestseller. That is the cold hard truth of it. But that doesn't mean that you won't have a very enjoyable publishing career. And hey, Cami. And also a very robust following, and your audience will be reached and all of those things. But your advance may or may not live up to your expectations. So that's one of the things. And then you also, it's very common these days, extremely common, to invest money in outside editors or coaches, people to help you get the manuscript in the shape that it needs to be, or sometimes get the pitch in the place that it needs to be before you even talk to an editor in-house. So what happened several years ago is that in the general business of publishing, especially in the Big Five, there was a lot of attrition of editors. They left or they were downsized, and so that capacity now is gone from the inside of the Big Five publishers. Not completely, but the editors who are left have to spend a lot of their time doing marketing things, which they didn't have to do so much in the past. So it can be typical for an author to have to hire outside help themselves to get them to a place where the traditional publisher will say, yes, we're going to publish this book. That is very common these days, and that can be a surprise if you're not expecting that. If you're expecting kind of the old school way of doing things where you get the book deal, you get the editor, everyone's taking care of it, and you just sail into publication. It's different now. So maybe that would make you think, well, then why would I do that? Let me just self-publish, let me just keep all the profits for myself. That is an option, and there's more and more possibilities out there for self-publishing these days. And one of the big benefits is you do keep all the profits from your sales, and that can be a big plus for people. You also won't deal with overloaded editors or distracted marketing teams, or, if that press has a big celebrity author, like say the Obamas are on the list in the publishing house we are, then your editor is going to be paying attention to Michelle Obama and not to you. That's just how it goes. Not to say that would happen. That's kind of an extreme example, but you see what I mean. That can happen in traditional publishing, and sometimes agents will be less available than you want them to. That can happen also. So in self-publishing, you skip all of that stuff. Now, the cons of it is that you definitely pay all the way along to get published. You pay someone to help you develop the manuscript, to upload it to the various places it needs to go, to create the cover, to get the ISBNs in place, to proofread it, to check that everything is working. You are doing all of this stuff yourself, and you are also trying to get it out to people yourself. You are doing all the marketing, you are doing all the external facing stuff, and learning how to do that at the same time. So that's not everyone's cup of tea. Self-publishing can be a lot of work. If you are someone who likes to DIY things, maybe you have a team in place already, and you can help them to learn along with you about what's required, then maybe you'll really like it because you get to have total control over the process. And if you have a big platform already, you have thousands of followers and they're already really engaged and they love what you do, then maybe it will be easy for you to communicate with them and to sell copies. But the main challenge of self-publishing is that after you've done all the development yourself and done all the uploading and done all the tech and all of that, is how will people find your book and how will you get your book to them? So the marketing of your book and then the distribution of your book. How are you going to do those things? And of course, it's not just a one and done kind of thing. It's an ongoing process. We know tech works and then it doesn't work and we have to fix things, or platforms change and we have to adjust. And also we know that Distribution will be an ongoing thing. If you have people who want your book, then they have to have a way to get your book from you. So that would be something you have to take care of as a self-publishing author. The other way to go that I mentioned at the beginning is hybrid publishing. Now, a hybrid publisher is a publisher who puts some of the cost of publishing on you, but also takes some of the work away from you. So they are going to help you put your book together. They're going to help with production. They're going to help with maybe some editing, marketing, distribution. They're going to pay you a higher royalty than a traditional publisher, because you're also going to pay some money up front. And they're going to be with you through the process, and they're going to lay it out for you, like what's all involved in this. The con is that, of course, you still pay to be published, and it's the same financial risk as self-publishing. And you're still involved at every level of creating this book. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes hybrid publishers, vanity publishers will mask themselves as hybrid publishers. So a vanity publisher will ask you to apply to work with them. They feel very salesy, very pushy. They should make your gut go, some alarm bells sound, like it sounds too good to be true, because they're preying on people's desire to have all of their problems solved and not have to do too much work in the publishing process. And really, that's not the case. You are going to be involved, and you are going to be doing some work all the way along. So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Definitely do your research. Definitely ask your questions. It's very important as an author to stay in the driver's seat of your process all the way through. There's really no point when you can give it away to somebody else. So watch out for those vanity presses, but hybrid publishing is totally fine. It's totally legitimate. You might have heard of She Writes Press or Greenleaf Publishing. These are very reputable hybrid publishers, and you can feel secure going with them. So you might be thinking, okay, so that sounds like a lot more work than I thought. So why should I publish a book? And some people do get to this point and think, no, that's not for me. I don't want to do that. But it is true that a book is an impressive calling card. It still is. It still is something when you say, I'm an author and here's my book, and you put it on your LinkedIn and your social and your website, and people go, oh, wow, that is so interesting. I respect this person a lot more. So on a kind of reputation satisfaction level, it's very high. It's very high ranking. The other thing that can happen when you publish a book, like say you published a very literary book, a novel or a memoir, and you were at a smaller press and you didn't get a very big advance, like maybe $1,000 or something like that. There are some side benefits that can have financial gains in them too. Like you might be able to now pitch yourself as a speaker. You might now be invited to be on certain panels, on certain committees. You might be able to give appearances in places where they do pay you. And so you get the financial remuneration in different ways, not from the advance necessarily, or even from the sales. If you have a very literary book, the sales tend to be small. If you've sold 3,000 copies, you're doing very well. You're not going to see a huge amount of royalties. So the benefit actually comes after you've published and you have that book in your pocket, in your oeuvre, and people say, I want to book that person. I want them to come and talk to me. I want to involve them some way in what I'm doing. That's the side benefit that can have financial implications that are not always very obvious. And collaborations, also media appearances, you might have a lot more ease in booking those once you have a book out. But it is an investment. I want to really emphasize this. Publishing a book, it is an investment any way you go. So think about it more like opening a restaurant than getting an award. So if you're opening a restaurant, you find the space, you lease the space, and then you renovate it to your liking, you design it the way you want it to be, you figure out what the menu is, you buy the food, you hire the staff. So by the time you open the doors, you've already spent a lot of money, right? There's the rent to pay, there's the salaries to pay, there's the equipment, the food to buy, there's a design, and probably you've hired experts along the way to help you. So writing a book is you don't need as many people involved. Hopefully you don't have as many people involved in your process, but it does benefit from that kind of investment up front. Like maybe you hire an independent editor, maybe you hire a book coach, maybe you hire someone to evaluate what you've done so that when you go into pitching the book, or when you're developing the book and you're under contract, you feel like I am writing the best book that I can write and I know this is going to do well. So there is an investment portion of that upfront now. These days with books, very rare that you're not going to spend some money to write a book and then you recuperate your cost on the back end in the various ways that I was talking about. Okay, so how do you reach traditional publishers? If that's the way that you want to go, you traditionally would reach them through an agent. Some presses do not require agent submission, but all of the big five basically do. In the mid-size, usually it's either you can do it yourself, submit yourself, or get an agent and have the agent do it. Again, the agent's going to have those relationships, so they might be able to smooth that path for you. At the smaller level, you don't need an agent, and you could have one, but you don't really need one at the smaller level. So that is really how you reach them, and you just have to do your research. You probably have some titles that you love, and think about like, oh, what are the presses whose books I really love to read? Where do I want to see my book? And then start doing some research to figure out who the editors are there, who the agents are, who are connected with them, and then start making those relationships. It's just old-fashioned research. That's how you reach traditional publishers. And if you're going for hybrid or self-publishing, of course, you're going to do some investigation too and figure out which is the right platform for you, which is the right fit, which one has the right mission that matches yours, and so on. There's no magic to it, or I could say if there's any magic, the magic is ask your network what they do and see if you can learn some tips and tricks from them, because that can also be a really powerful way to start your publishing journey. All right, so when do you need an agent? I started to talk about this a minute ago. When you want to publish with a big five publisher, you definitely need an agent, absolutely. If you have something that is extremely timely, or you have a very big platform, then you do want to work with an agent, because they're going to be able to get the best deal for you given your situation and help you. Some of them will help you shape the book, not all of them. Some of them will help you do that. When you need an insider to help you negotiate your publishing deal, an agent is there to do that. And the agent is also there to help you troubleshoot whatever comes up during your publication journey, like anything with the editor or the publishing house or the marketing. They can have those conversations with those people. So an agent is really your ally on the inside once you get a book deal also. And it's good to know that an agent will take 15% of your royalties. That is standard. That's their standard fee. So don't be surprised. And if you are in the fortunate position of getting foreign rights, that will be an additional 20% to that foreign rights agent on those deals. So, okay. How do you know when to pitch to a publisher or an editor directly? Well, again, I was hinting at this before. If you have a small platform and you're going for a small or mid-sized press, you can probably submit yourself, but an agent will help you if you do have an agent. So there's no harm in having an agent, but you can definitely do it yourself. If you're very unknown and have a small platform, you're probably going to submit yourself to a publisher. That's probably going to be the best path for you. And then you can hire a publishing or entertainment lawyer to help you negotiate the contract. Those people are out there. They are very helpful, and they're there to help you out. Kelly says, how do you find big platform? What email list size would be considered a big platform, and does it matter if someone has relatively little social media? Okay, so hey Ayelet, nice to see you here. So if you have social media, you do not have to be on social media in order to be considered someone who has a platform. So a platform could be just any channel, any way that you reach people where they're engaging with you and they're liking what you're doing and they are regularly engaged with you. So maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's your email list, maybe it's your YouTube channel, maybe you give talks and you're not really on social media that much at all, but you've got a list of people that come to your talks or watch your talks. In some way, you have some public-facing existence and can say, I've got a lot of people who like what I'm doing and are always engaged in what I'm doing, and I know how to reach them. That's basically what you're saying with a platform. So defining the platform, these numbers are very squishy. For example, An influencer on Instagram is someone with 100,000 followers. A micro influencer is 10,000 followers, which for a normal human sounds like an extraordinary number of people, and how are you ever going to do that? But there's a vast difference between 1,000 very engaged followers of people who are always messaging and sharing your work, and 100,000 followers who aren't really doing much with you at all. Like, those people who are not doing much are not going to help you sell your book, and those 1,000 devoted fans really are. So which is the better platform there? I think publishers, editors, agents are smart enough to know that a very engaged audience is the one to go with. So fewer numbers, but lots of engagement, that's really hot. That's going to be a good bet. So email list size, the bigger the numbers, the more impressive it is. That's kind of human nature. Like, wow, what does it all mean though? That's how you got to make your case for that when you get to the proposal stage. And there are some tricks and ways to do that. And also it happens over time. This is something we cover in Book Proposal Academy, those of you who are just joining us, and applications are open. If you are curious about it, go to the link in my bio, check it out, fill out the application. I am doing a private training, a live training on December 9th. If you apply, you have a nonfiction book that you're working on, including memoir, apply and come. I'll send you an invitation and I will see you on the 9th and we'll do this live private training together. Little plug for BPA. So let me keep going here. We talked about the side benefits. We talked about when you need an agent, and we talked about the publication options. So how do you find an agent or an editor? So one way to do it is to make a big splash. Do something that gets a lot of attention. Now, we can't always engineer this. We can only do our best, make our best effort. Like, publish somewhere, publish your work somewhere, a little excerpt from the book you're working on. It could be a high profile place. It could be a small place. Agents and editors are reading fairly widely. Obviously, if it goes viral, that's excellent for you, and that makes a really good case for your book. If you can do something like give a talk, even give a TED Talk, something noteworthy that's going to get people's attention, that's going to be in the public, that we're going to see, that is a way to get the attention of agents and editors. And again, back to the platform issue, if you have a channel that you're regularly on and is noticeable, and you have something you're really known for, like Kelly, you're really known for your Dharma Bridge program, and there's some way that you're always reaching people. So if you have a constant presence there, like a blog or whatever it is that you're doing, a Twitter channel even, that can be something that is very persuasive for agents and editors. The other way is to reach through your network and just really ask people, anyone published a book? Anyone worked with an agent or editor? Can you recommend someone? What were your experiences with them? Even if someone doesn't want to share their contact, because sometimes people are protective of that, if they can still tell you about their experience or how they found them, and just do a little digging and sleuthing and to see what happened, that can lead to a lot of really important and powerful connections. Okay. Oh, the other way, the classic way, is to look in the acknowledgement sections of the books that you love and see who the author thanks as their editor, as their agent, as anyone who helped the book go along, and then do some sleuthing and see what you find. That is another excellent way to find out who you might want to work with. Okay, let's see. I think this is it, but let me just check and see my notes. Yes, I believe that is it. So let me ask you if you have any questions for me. Kelly asked a great question about platform size, what's considered a platform, all of that stuff. Any other questions you have? I'm here to answer. I know that Sue Van Race was going to join. She was going to try to join today. And she and I worked together last year, and she just got her agent. She's really excited. Her book on somatic eating and women's wellness, women's health. And she had such an interesting journey with finding her agent. She came to me when she had written her proposal herself. She had sent it out herself to various people and had interest, but nobody took it. And then we worked together to make her proposal something that was more of the moment, that had more of a system in place for its content. That was a big part of it. And then I pushed her a lot to like think about her platform in these various different ways that I was hinting at before. And she followed up with her warm leads, and then she took a break, and then she came back to it. Hey, Ashley. And then through a connection, she got connected to an agent and signed with this person that feels like a perfect fit for her. So I'm really psyched for Sue. She is proof that it is all possible. And I know her book on somatic eating for women is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. She's a functional nutritionist in Boulder, and hardworking and insightful, and helped a lot of people. So that is going to be a great project. I can't wait to see what kind of deal she gets. So I'll hang on here for a couple more minutes and let me know if you have any questions that I can answer. I just want to say again that Book Proposal Academy is open for applications, and the link's in the bio. We're going to do a live training next week, so do apply as soon as you can, and I will review your application as soon as I can. Reem asks, how many clients do editors or agents usually work with at one time? That's a great question. It really depends on the publishing house. So in the smaller houses, they don't have as big of a client to editor ratio, so they will be working with fewer people and able to give them more attention. In the bigger houses, I think it varies house to house, but I know that since a lot of people had to leave in the downsizing that's happened over the last 10 years, that ratio has gotten bigger. So there's more people working with editors at once. Some editors will still be doing a lot of line editing, like getting in there with you, in the manuscript with you, and really figuring it out, tinkering with it a lot. But a lot of editors don't have time for that anymore because of the workload, how many clients they have at one time. This is definitely a really good question to ask as you go into pitching your book, would be, when you're having conversations with publishers, when you're at that stage, to ask them, how many clients do you work with and how much attention do you give to each client? Like, how deeply are you going to be able to edit? So Reem, keep that in mind when it comes time for your project, because it's a really good question, and it depends publishing house to publishing house and editor to editor. Okay, Kelly asks a question about writing. Would love to hear your perspective on how to best bring elements of one's life, story, memoir elements into a book that is nonfiction or philosophy. Oh, yeah, good question. So yes, as your question implies, you've already kind of got it, Kelly. You will bring stories in that will illuminate an idea that you are talking about and trying to elucidate. And you, in a nonfiction book that's that's either a teaching memoir, so it's more memoir than anything else, but it has lessons, or if it's really prescriptive nonfiction self-help, then it's focused on the helping, and the memoir comes in sort of secondary. You will titrate your stories depending on what kind of book it is. So in a teaching memoir, you will really tell your story, and then you'll have some kind of takeaway for people at the end. In more traditional self-help, you will write out what the idea is and then fit your story in there to be an example of the idea that you're trying to convey. I hope that's not confusing. It's really about degree. Like, what is your book primarily? What is the genre of your book? Is it mostly memoir? I think for you, it's probably going to be prescriptive nonfiction, more on the self-help end of things. And so your stories would function as examples of what you're trying to illuminate, and they will probably be somewhat smaller than what you would have in a teaching memoir. Like you can see behind me, Zainab Salvi's book, that was a teaching memoir. That is a teaching memoir where the book is all her stories from her life, but each chapter is teaching some aspect of the journey that she went on. And there is sort of takeaways for the author, for the reader, even though there are no actual exercises in that book. Whereas Terry Cole's book, which you can't see, but it's over here, that is really prescriptive nonfiction. But she's got her stories woven throughout, plus stories from clients in there. Cami, I will be sending out this video by email. So watch your email inbox and you will get to watch this again. Yes, definitely. All right. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes, so let me know if you have more questions. I know that Reem's coming to the live training on Thursday, December 9th, which is in 1 week. I'm really excited for it. I love this material that I put together. I know Kelly already came to the one I did in November, the kind of dry run, which is super fun to have her there. And Catherine will be with us. And yeah, Cami, sure, no problem. Cami and I've worked together. Yes, so excited. Yeah, me too, Reem. It's really, I love this material, and I'm super excited for the insights that I've been having lately and thinking about, like, how can I serve people better? How can I really understand? I understand a lot more where people fall through the cracks. Like, how can I prevent that from happening more? And so this new program, this new iteration of Book Proposal Academy is that. And I think it's going to be amazing. And the live training is awesome. I'm so excited to see you there. So do apply if you haven't already. And thanks for coming today. I will be sending this recording out in an email tomorrow. And see you soon. I love talking with you. Thanks a lot for coming today. Talk to you soon.